Rediscovering strategy, the failure to choose. Why do so many companies fail to have strategy? Why do managers avoid making strategic choices? Or, having made them in the past, why do managers so often let strategies decay and blur? Commonly, the threat to strategy are seen to emanate from outside the company because of changes in technology or the behavior of competitors. Although external changes can be the problem, the greatest threat to strategy often comes from within. A sound strategy is determined by misguided view of competition, by organizational failures, and especially by the desire to grow. Managers have become confused about the necessity of making choices. When many companies operate far from the productivity frontier, trade-offs appear unnecessary. It can seem that a well-run company should be able to beat its ineffectiveness rivals on all dimensions simultaneously. Taught by popular management thinkers that they do not have to make trade-offs, managers have acquired a macho sense that to do so is a sign of weakness. Unnerved by forecasts of hyper-competition, managers increase its likelihood by imitating everything about their competitors. Exhorted to think in terms of revolution, managers chase every new technology for its own sake. The pursuit of operational effectiveness is seductive because it is concrete and actionable. Over the past decade, managers have been under increasing pressure to deliver tangible, measurable performance improvements. Programs in operational effectiveness produce reassuring progress, although superior profitability may remain elusive. Business publications and consultants flood the market with information about what other companies are doing, reinforcing the best practice mentality. Caught up in the race for operational effectiveness, many managers simply do not understand the need to have a strategy. Companies avoid or blur strategic choices for other reasons as well. Conventional wisdom within an industry is often strong, homogenizing competition. Some managers mistake customer focus to mean they must serve all customer needs or respond to every request from distribution channels. Others cite a desire to preserve flexibility. Organizational realities also work against strategy. Trade-offs are frightening, and making no choice is sometimes preferred to risking blame for a bad choice. Companies imitate one another in a type of herd behavior, each assuming rivals know everything they do not. Newly empowered employees who are urged to seek every possible source of improvement often lack a vision of a whole and perspective to recognize trade-offs. The failure to choose sometimes comes down to the reluctance to disappoint valued managers or employees. The growth trap. Among all other influences, the desire to grow has perhaps the most perverse effect on strategy. Trade-offs and limits appear to constrain growth. Serving one group of customers and excluding others, for instance, places a real or imagined limit on revenue growth. Broadly, targeted strategies emphasizing low price result in low sales with customers sensitive to features or service. Differentiators lose sales to price-sensitive customers. Managers are constantly tempted to take incremental steps that surpass those limits but blur a company's strategic position. Eventually, pressures to grow or apparent saturation of the target market lead managers to broaden the position by extending product lines, adding new features, imitating competitors' popular services, matching processes, and even making acquisitions. For years, Maytag Corporation's success was based on its focus on reliable, durable washers and dryers. Later extended to include dishwashers. However, conventional wisdom emerging within the industry supported the notion of selling a full line of products. Concerned with slow industry growth and competition from broad-line appliance makers, Maytag was pressured by dealers and encouraged by customers to extend its line. Maytag expanded into refrigerators and cooking products under the Maytag brand and acquired other brands. With disparate positions, Maytag has grown substantially from $685 million in 1985 to a peak of $3.4 billion in 1994, but return on sales had declined from 8% to 12% in the 1970s and 1980s to an average of less than 1% between 1989 and 1995. Cost cutting will improve this performance, but laundry and dishwasher products still anchor Maytag's profitability. Neutrogena may have fallen into the same trap. In the early 1990s, its U.S. distribution broadened to include mass merchandisers such as Walmart stores. Under the Neutrogena name, the company expanded into a wide variety of products: eye makeup remover and sham, for example, in which it was not unique and which diluted its image, and it began turning to price promotions. Compromises and inconsistencies in the pursuit of growth will erode the competitive advantage a company had with its original varieties or target customers. Attempt to compete in several ways at once create confusion and undermine organizational motivation and focus. Profits fall, but more revenue is seen as the answer. Managers are unable to make choices, so the company embarks on a new round of broadening and compromises. Often, rivals continue to match each other until desperation breaks the cycle, resulting in a merger or downsizing to the original positioning. Profitable growth. Many companies, after a decade of restructuring and cost-cutting, are turning their attention to growth. Too often, efforts to growth blur uniqueness, create compromises, reduce speed, and ultimately undermine competitive advantage. In fact, the growth imperative is hazardous to strategy. What approaches to growth, preserve, and reinforce strategy? Broadly, the prescription is to concentrate on deepening a strategic position rather than broadening and compromising it. One approach is to look for extensions of the strategy, then leverage the existing activity system by offering features or services that rivals would find impossible or costly to match on a standalone basis. In other words, managers can ask themselves which activities, features, or forms of competition are feasible or less costly to them because of complementary activities that their company performs. Deepening a position involves making the company's activities more distinctive, strengthening fit, and communicating the strategy better to those customers who should value it. But many companies succumb to the temptation to chase easy growth by adding hot features, products, or services without screening them or adapting them to their strategy. Or they target new customers or markets in which the company has little special to offer. A company can often grow faster and far more profitably by better penetrating needs and varieties where it is distinctive than by sluggishing it out in potentially higher growth arenas in which the company lacks uniqueness. Carmike, now the largest theater chain in the United States, owes its rapid growth to its disciplined concentration on small markets. The company quickly sells any big city theaters that comes to it as part of an acquisition. Globalization often allows growth that, that is consistent with strategy. Opening up larger markets for focused strategy, unlike broadening domestically, expanding globally is likely to leverage and reinforce a company's unique position and identity. Companies seeking growth through broadening within their industry can best contain the risk to strategy by creating standalone units, each with its own brand name and tailored activities. Medtech has clearly struggled with this issue. On the one hand, it has organized its premium and value brand into separate units with different strategic positions. On the other, it has created an umbrella appliance company for all its brands to gain critical mass. With shared design, manufacturing, distribution, and customer service, it will be hard to avoid homogenization. If a given business unit attempts to compete with different positions for different products or customers, avoiding compromise is nearly impossible. The role of leadership. The challenge of developing or re-establishing a clear strategy is often primarily an organizational one and depends on leadership. With so many forces at work against making choices and trade-offs in organizations, a clear intellectual framework to guide strategy is a necessary counterweight. Moreover, strong leaders willing to make choices are essential. In many companies, leadership has degenerated into orchestrating operational improvements and making deals, but the leader's role is broader and far more important. General management is more than the stewardship of individual functions. Its core is strategy, defining and communicating the company's unique position, making trade-offs, and forging fit among activities. The leader must provide the discipline to decide which industry changes and customer needs the company will respond to, while avoiding organizational distractions and maintaining the company's distinctiveness. Managers at lower levels lack the perspective and the competence to maintain a strategy. There will be constant pressures to compromise, relax trade-offs, and emulate rivals. One of the leader's job is to teach others in the organization about strategy and to say no. Strategy renders choices about what not to do as important as choices about what to do. Indeed, setting limits is another function of leadership. Indeed, setting limits is another function of leadership. Deciding which target group of customers, priorities, and needs the company should serve is fundamental to developing a strategy. But so is deciding not to serve other customers or needs and not to offer certain features or services. Thus, strategy requires constant discipline and clear communication. Indeed, one of the most important functions of an explicit communicated strategy is to guide employees in making choices that arise because of trade-offs in their individual activities and in day-to-day decisions. Improving operational effectiveness is a necessary part of management, but it's not strategy. In confusing the two, managers have unintentionally backed into a way of thinking about competition that's driving many industries toward competitive convergence, which is no one's best interest and is not inevitable. Managers must clearly distinguish operational effectiveness from strategy. Both are essential, but the two agendas are different. The operational agenda involves continual improvement everywhere. There are no trade-offs. Failure to do this creates vulnerability even for companies with a good strategy. The operational agenda is the proper place for constant change, flexibility, and relentless effort to achieve best practice. In contrast, the strategic agenda is the right place for defining a unique position, making clear trade-offs, and tightening fit. It involves the continuous search for ways to reinforce and extend the company's position. The strategic agenda demands discipline and continuity. Its enemies are distraction and compromise. Strategic continuity does not imply a static view of competition. A company must continually improve its operational effectiveness and actively try to shift the productivity frontier. At the same time, there needs to be ongoing effort to extend its uniqueness while strengthening the fit among its activities. Strategic continuity, in fact, should make an organization's continual improvement more effective. A company may have to change its strategy if there are major structural changes in its industry. In fact, new strategic positions often arise from of industry changes, and new entrants unencumbered by history often can exploit them more easily. However, a company's choice of a new position must be driven by the ability to find a new trade-offs and leverage a new system of complementary activities into a sustainable advantage.